Sarah Martinez had always been different. Growing up in a small Texas town where football and Friday night lights ruled everything, she stood out like a wildflower in a field of wheat. While other girls her age were worried about homecoming dresses and which boy would ask them to prom, Sarah was reading military history books and doing push-ups in her backyard. Her father, Roberto Martinez, had served 2 tours in Afghanistan before an IED explosion left him with a permanent limp and a Purple Heart. He never talked much about his service, but Sarah saw the way his eyes would sometimes drift to places she couldn't follow. She saw the newspaper clippings he kept in his desk drawer, photos of fallen comrades whose names were etched into black granite walls she had never seen but somehow understood. When Sarah announced during her junior year of high school that she wanted to join the military, the reactions were predictable. Her mother, Elena, worried about her only daughter following in her father's dangerous footsteps. Her classmates laughed behind her back, whispering that she was too small, too soft, too much of a dreamer to make it in a man's world. But Sarah had something burning inside her chest. Something that felt bigger than the small-town boundaries that seemed to contain everyone else she knew. She wanted to serve something greater than herself. She wanted to honor the sacrifice she had witnessed in her father's quiet struggles with nightmares and the way he sometimes flinched at loud noises. The day she turned 18, Sarah walked into the Navy recruitment office in the neighboring city. The recruiter, a seasoned petty officer with kind eyes and calloused hands, listened as she explained her goals. She didn't just want to serve, she told him. She wanted to be the best. She wanted to prove that determination could overcome any physical limitation. Her training began immediately after high school graduation. Basic training in Great Lakes was everything the movies had promised, and nothing like them at all. The physical demands pushed her beyond what she thought possible. The mental challenges forced her to confront fears she didn't even know she carried. But Sarah discovered something about herself during those grueling weeks that would change the trajectory of her entire life. She was unbreakable. While other recruits struggled with homesickness or the constant pressure from drill instructors, Sarah thrived. She helped struggling teammates with their studies, shared her rations with those who were falling behind physically, and somehow managed to maintain the highest academic scores in her class while excelling in every physical fitness test. Her drill instructor, Chief Petty Officer Williams, noticed something special in the young woman from Texas. During a particularly brutal training exercise in the final weeks of basic training, when Sarah's team was tasked with carrying a wounded teammate across a challenging obstacle course, she had stepped forward without hesitation. Despite being one of the smaller recruits, she had helped organize her team and had personally carried the simulated casualty for the final half-mile when her partner had collapsed from exhaustion. After graduation from basic training, Sarah was assigned to specialized training that would prepare her for advanced military operations. It was during this phase that she first heard whispers about the special warfare community. Navy SEALs were legendary, spoken about in hushed tones, even among seasoned military personnel. The idea took root slowly at first, like a seed planted in fertile ground. Could someone like her, a young woman from a small town with more heart than physical presence, actually compete at that level? The question followed her through months of additional training, through sleepless nights studying tactical manuals, through countless hours of physical preparation. It was during a particularly challenging field exercise that Sarah met Lieutenant Commander James Morrison. He was observing the training exercises, evaluating personnel for potential special operations roles. Morrison had the weathered look of someone who had seen combat, with intelligent eyes that seemed to measure everything around him. Sarah's team was tasked with a complex navigation and infiltration exercise. When their original plan fell apart due to unexpected weather conditions, it was Sarah who had suggested an alternative route that would get them to their objective on time. Her quick thinking and ability to adapt under pressure caught Morrison's attention immediately. After the exercise, Morrison approached Sarah privately. He asked about her background, her goals, and most importantly, about the fire he could see burning behind her eyes. When she mentioned her interest in special operations, he didn't laugh or dismiss her concerns about being a woman in a male-dominated field. Instead, he told her something that would stay with her for years to come. "The military is changing," he had said, looking out at the training grounds where her fellow sailors were cleaning their equipment. We're starting to realize that the best warriors aren't necessarily the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes, they're the smartest, the most determined, the ones who refuse to quit when everyone else would have given up long ago. That conversation planted the seed that would grow into Sarah's decision to pursue special warfare training. But it also marked the beginning of a journey that would test every assumption she had ever made about herself, about her limitations, and about what it meant to serve with honor. As she prepared for the challenges ahead, Sarah began to understand that her real battle wouldn't be against enemy combatants or impossible physical standards. Her real battle would be against the voices, both external and internal, that insisted she didn't belong in the elite ranks of America's most specialized warriors. The small tattoo she had gotten on her 18th birthday, a simple anchor with her father's military unit number, would become a symbol that carried more weight than she could have ever imagined. It represented not just her connection to her family's military legacy, but her determination to forge her own path in a world that wasn't quite ready for someone like her. Little did Sarah know that this small piece of ink would one day become the center of a moment that would silence an entire room and change how people thought about courage, service, and what it truly meant to be a warrior. The Navy's special warfare training pipeline was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The moment she stepped into the preparation program, she realized that every challenge she had faced before was just a warm-up for what lay ahead. The instructors made it clear from day one that they weren't interested in making friends or boosting anyone's self-esteem. Their job was to find the absolute limits of human endurance and then push beyond them. Sarah's days began at 4 a.m. with ice-cold ocean swims that left her entire body numb. The Pacific waters off the California coast showed no mercy to anyone, regardless of their background or determination. The first time she plunged into the freezing surf in complete darkness, Sarah thought her heart might actually stop beating. But she forced herself to focus on the rhythm of her strokes, on the steady breathing techniques she had practiced thousands of times. The other candidates in her training class came from diverse backgrounds, but they shared one common trait. They were all men who had already proven themselves in various military roles. Sarah quickly learned that her presence was met with a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and in some cases, outright hostility. During the first week of training, a candidate named Jackson made his feelings known during a brief rest period between exercises. "I don't know what kind of social experiment they're running here," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "But when bullets start flying in the real world, I want someone next to me who can actually carry their own weight." Sarah had faced similar comments throughout her military career, but something about the intensity of the training environment made every word cut deeper. She was exhausted, pushed beyond what she thought was possible, and dealing with the constant pressure of knowing that any mistake could end her dreams immediately. But instead of responding with anger or defensiveness, Sarah chose a different path. She let her performance speak for itself. During log PT, when teams of 6 had to carry massive wooden logs through grueling exercise routines, Sarah positioned herself strategically to maximize her contribution, despite her smaller stature. She studied the techniques of weight distribution and leverage, turning what could have been a disadvantage into an opportunity to demonstrate tactical thinking. The instructors, led by Master Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, watched everything with calculating eyes. Rodriguez had been through multiple combat deployments and had seen every type of warrior personality imaginable. He wasn't impressed by bravado or trash talk. He was looking for something much rarer. The kind of quiet determination that could carry a person through the darkest moments when everything else failed. During Hell Week, the notorious 5.5-day ordeal that broke even the strongest candidates, Sarah faced her greatest test. With only 4 hours of sleep over 5 days, constant physical and mental challenges, and the pressure of proving herself in front of her peers, she felt her body approaching complete shutdown multiple times. On the third night, during a particularly brutal beach exercise where candidates had to carry heavy equipment through soft sand while instructors used hoses to simulate combat conditions, Sarah's team began to fall apart. Jackson, who had been one of her harshest critics, collapsed from exhaustion and hypothermia. Without hesitation, Sarah helped drag him to cover and shared her limited rations with him during their brief rest period. "Why?" Jackson asked through chattering teeth, genuinely confused by her actions. "After everything I said about you," Sarah looked at him with eyes that seemed older than her years. "Because that's what teammates do," she said simply. "We don't leave anyone behind, no matter what." That moment marked a turning point in how her fellow candidates viewed her. They began to see past the obvious physical differences and recognize the warrior spirit that drove her forward when others would have quit. Sarah's reputation began to shift from being the woman who might not make it to being the candidate who would never give up. The psychological evaluations were perhaps even more challenging than the physical tests. Military psychologists probed every aspect of her background, her motivations, and her mental resilience. They wanted to understand what drove someone to pursue such a demanding path, especially when facing additional obstacles that most candidates never had to consider. During one particularly intense session, Dr. Patricia Chen, a Navy psychologist who specialized in special operations personnel, asked Sarah a question that cut to the heart of her journey. What happens if you don't make it through this training? What happens if all this effort and sacrifice doesn't lead to the outcome you're hoping for? Sarah considered the question carefully before responding. "Then I'll know I gave everything I had to something that mattered," she said. "But I won't have to wonder what would have happened if I had tried. The regret of not attempting this would be worse than the disappointment of not succeeding." Dr. Chen noted something in Sarah's psychological profile that would later become relevant during her career evaluation. She demonstrated an unusual combination of humility and unshakable confidence. She understood her limitations but refused to be defined by them. More importantly, she showed genuine leadership qualities that went beyond giving orders or physical dominance. As the training progressed through its various phases, Sarah continued to excel in unexpected ways. Her marksmanship scores were consistently among the highest in her class. Her tactical planning during simulated operations showed creativity and strategic thinking that impressed even veteran instructors. Most importantly, her teammates increasingly looked to her for guidance during high-stress situations. The small anchor tattoo on her wrist, which had initially drawn mocking comments from some candidates, began to take on a different meaning. During a rare moment of downtime, Jackson approached her and asked about its significance. When Sarah explained the connection to her father's service and her family's military heritage, Jackson nodded with new understanding. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "I thought that tattoo was just some trendy thing. I didn't realize it represented something real." Sarah smiled, remembering the day she had gotten the tattoo and the promise she had made to herself to honor her family's legacy of service. "Sometimes the most important things about a person aren't visible from the outside," she replied. As the final phases of training approached, Sarah knew she was on the verge of achieving something that would change not just her own life, but potentially the perceptions of everyone who had doubted whether someone like her belonged among America's elite warriors. The tattoo that had once been a source of mockery was becoming a symbol of the determination and heritage that had carried her through the most challenging experience of her life. Graduation day from special warfare training arrived with the kind of crisp California morning that made everything seem possible. Sarah stood among the small group of candidates who had survived the grueling months of preparation, wearing her dress whites with the same pride her father had shown when he first put on his army uniform years before. The ceremony was attended by families, military officials, and veteran SEALs who came to witness the graduation of the newest members of their brotherhood. Sarah's parents had flown in from Texas, her father walking with the same determined gait that had carried him through his own military service despite his war injuries. When the instructor called her name and she stepped forward to receive her special warfare insignia, the pride in Roberto Martinez's eyes was unmistakable. But earning the right to wear the trident was only the beginning of Sarah's real journey. Her first assignment took her to Naval Special Warfare Group 2, where she would work alongside seasoned operators who had years of combat experience. The transition from training to active duty brought new challenges that tested everything she had learned about leadership, teamwork, and maintaining her composure under pressure. Her new commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander David Chen, was known throughout the special operations community as a fair but demanding leader. He had served multiple combat tours and had earned the respect of his men through decisive action and unwavering commitment to their safety. When Sarah reported for duty, Chen made his expectations clear during their first private meeting. "Your training scores are impressive," he said, reviewing her file. "But training and operational reality are two different things. My job is to ensure that every person under my command can perform when lives are on the line. I don't care about your background or what barriers you've had to overcome. What matters is whether you can do the job when it counts. Sarah appreciated his direct approach. She had never wanted special treatment or consideration based on her gender. She wanted to earn her place through performance and reliability, just like any other operator. Her first few months with the team involved intensive additional training, learning the specific procedures and protocols that would govern their future missions. The team she joined was a tight-knit group of professionals who had worked together through multiple deployments. There was Thompson, a sniper from Oklahoma whose calm demeanor masked incredible precision under pressure. Martinez, a communications specialist from New Mexico who could establish contact with command in any environment. Williams, an explosives expert whose knowledge of demolitions was matched only by his dry sense of humor. Initially, the team members were cautious around Sarah, not because of any hostility, but because they needed to establish trust that could only come through shared experiences. In the special operations world, trust wasn't given freely. It was earned through countless small moments where each person proved they could be relied upon when everything went wrong. Sarah's first opportunity to prove herself came during a training exercise designed to simulate a hostage rescue scenario. The team was tasked with infiltrating a compound, neutralizing hostile forces, and extracting civilians without casualties. The exercise was designed to test not just individual skills, but the team's ability to work together under extreme time pressure. During the planning phase, Sarah noticed a potential weakness in their approach that others had overlooked. The original plan called for a frontal assault that would maximize their firepower advantage, but Sarah recognized that it would also expose the hostages to unnecessary risk. She suggested an alternative approach that would take longer, but would significantly reduce the chance of civilian casualties. Thompson initially resisted her suggestion, arguing that their primary responsibility was to the safety of the team, not to perfect mission outcomes in a training scenario. But Sarah persisted. Walking through her tactical reasoning with calm professionalism, she showed how her approach would actually reduce risk to the team while improving mission success probability. Lieutenant Commander Chen, who was observing the planning session, watched the interaction with interest. He was less concerned with which tactical approach they chose than with how the team dynamics played out under pressure. When Sarah's plan proved successful during the exercise, resulting in a flawless hostage rescue with no simulated casualties, Chen noted how she had managed to influence the team's decision-making without creating conflict or undermining established leadership structures. After the exercise, Thompson approached Sarah privately. "That was good thinking back there," he admitted. "I was focused on the technical aspects of the assault, but you were thinking about the bigger picture. That's not something you can really teach in training." These small moments of recognition began to accumulate over the following months. Sarah's teammates gradually came to appreciate not just her technical competence, but the unique perspective she brought to their operational planning. She had a talent for anticipating potential complications and developing contingency plans that others might overlook. Her reputation within the special operations community began to grow beyond her immediate team. During joint training exercises with other units, her performance consistently stood out. She excelled in long-range reconnaissance missions that required patience and attention to detail. Her marksmanship skills proved exceptional in complex urban environments, where precision was critical to avoiding collateral damage. But it was during a particularly challenging winter warfare exercise in Alaska that Sarah truly proved her place among the elite operators. The training scenario required teams to survive and complete objectives in sub-zero temperatures while carrying minimal equipment. The conditions were designed to push every aspect of human endurance to its limits. On the second day of the exercise, Williams suffered a severe ankle injury during a night navigation exercise. The team was miles from the nearest extraction point, and the weather conditions made immediate evacuation impossible. They faced a choice: abort the mission and call for emergency extraction, or find a way to continue with an injured team member. Sarah volunteered to carry Williams's equipment in addition to her own, allowing the team to maintain their mission timeline while ensuring that Williams could continue without further injury. For the next 18 hours, she carried nearly double the standard load through mountainous terrain and freezing conditions, never once complaining or asking for a break. By the time they reached their final objective, Sarah had proven something that went beyond physical capability or technical skill. She had demonstrated the kind of selfless commitment to mission success and team welfare that defined the very best special operations personnel. The exercise evaluators, led by Master Chief Rodriguez from her original training unit, noted in their report that Sarah's performance represented exactly the kind of leadership and sacrifice that the special operations community sought to cultivate. Her willingness to shoulder additional burden to ensure mission success while caring for an injured teammate showed the character traits that separated true warriors from merely competent soldiers. When the team returned to base, Lieutenant Commander Chen called Sarah into his office for her first official performance review. The conversation would mark another turning point in her military career and set the stage for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. 2 years into her service with Naval Special Warfare Group 2, Sarah received orders that would change the trajectory of her entire military career. She was selected for deployment to a classified location in the Middle East, where her team would work alongside international coalition forces on high-priority counterterrorism operations. The deployment represented everything she had trained for, but it also carried risks that went far beyond anything she had experienced during training exercises. The pre-deployment briefings painted a picture of an operational environment where split-second decisions could mean the difference between life and death. Lieutenant Commander Chen made it clear that their mission would involve direct action operations, intelligence gathering, and training local forces in advanced tactical procedures. Every team member would be pushed to their absolute limits, operating in conditions where there was no margin for error. Sarah's role would focus on intelligence analysis and liaison work with local military units, tasks that required not just tactical expertise but cultural sensitivity and communication skills. She had spent months preparing for this responsibility, learning local languages and studying regional politics. Her ability to connect with local populations while maintaining operational security would be critical to mission success. The deployment began with a series of routine operations that allowed the team to acclimate to their new environment. Sarah quickly distinguished herself in her interactions with local military leaders, many of whom had never worked with American Special Operations Forces. Her respectful approach and genuine interest in their perspectives helped establish trust relationships that proved invaluable for intelligence gathering. During her 3rd month in theater, Sarah's team was tasked with a complex mission that would test every aspect of their training and experience. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target was planning a major attack on coalition forces. The team needed to infiltrate an urban area, gather additional intelligence, and potentially conduct a direct action operation to neutralize the threat. The planning phase for the operation took weeks of careful preparation. Sarah's analysis of local intelligence sources provided crucial insights into enemy movement patterns and potential escape routes. Her recommendations influenced the team's approach, emphasizing stealth and precision over overwhelming force. The goal was to complete the mission while minimizing risk to civilian populations in the area. On the night of the operation, everything that could go wrong seemed to happen at once. The team's insertion point was compromised by unexpected enemy patrols, forcing them to adapt their approach in real time. Communications equipment malfunctioned due to interference from local electronic warfare systems. Most critically, their intelligence about the target's location proved to be outdated, requiring immediate tactical adjustments. Sarah found herself in a leadership position when Lieutenant Commander Chen was temporarily separated from the main team during the insertion phase. With Thompson and Williams looking to her for guidance, she had to make rapid decisions about how to proceed with the modified mission parameters. Her training had prepared her for such moments, but the weight of real-world consequences made every choice feel monumentous. Using hand signals and whispered communications, Sarah coordinated the team's movement through the urban environment. Her knowledge of local building layouts and cultural practices helped them avoid detection while moving toward their revised target location. When they encountered unexpected resistance from enemy forces, her quick thinking and tactical flexibility proved essential for mission success. The operation ultimately resulted in the capture of valuable intelligence and the disruption of planned attacks against coalition forces. More importantly for Sarah's career development, it demonstrated her ability to lead under extreme pressure while maintaining the trust and confidence of her teammates. The after-action review noted her exceptional performance and recommended her for advanced leadership training. Following the successful completion of her deployment, Sarah returned to the United States with commendations for her service and a growing reputation within the special operations community. Her combat experience had transformed her from a promising candidate into a proven operator with demonstrated leadership capabilities. Her next assignment took her to Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters, where she would work on developing new training protocols and operational procedures. The position represented a significant career advancement and placed her in direct contact with senior military leaders who were shaping the future of special operations. It was during this assignment that Sarah first encountered some of the institutional challenges that would define the next phase of her career. While her combat performance had earned widespread respect, she still faced skepticism from some senior leaders who questioned whether her success could be replicated by other women seeking to enter special operations roles. The debate about women in combat roles was intensifying throughout the military, with passionate arguments on all sides of the issue. Sarah found herself in the uncomfortable position of being seen as a test case for policies that would affect thousands of other military women. Every aspect of her performance was scrutinized not just for its own merits, but for what it might suggest about broader questions of integration and capability. During a particularly tense meeting with senior officers, one colonel questioned whether Sarah's success was representative or exceptional. "No one doubts your individual capabilities," he said, "but policy decisions have to be based on broader patterns and statistical probabilities. Can we expect similar results from other women? Or are you an outlier who succeeded despite systemic challenges?" Sarah's response reflected the thoughtful approach she had developed throughout her career. "I believe that excellence comes from dedication, training, and mental toughness rather than from physical characteristics," she said. "The standards should remain high for everyone, but they should be based on actual job requirements rather than assumptions about what different people can or cannot achieve." Her diplomatic but firm response impressed several senior leaders who were struggling with these complex policy questions. Sarah demonstrated an ability to discuss controversial topics with nuance and professionalism, avoiding both defensive reactions and political rhetoric. This skill would prove increasingly important as her career progressed. The tattoo on her wrist, which had once been a source of casual mockery, had taken on new significance during her deployment and subsequent assignments. Combat veterans who noticed it often asked about its meaning, leading to conversations about family, military traditions, and the personal motivations that drive people to serve. The small anchor had become a symbol of her connection to something larger than individual achievement. As Sarah prepared for her next career milestone, she reflected on how much had changed since her first days in special operations training. She had proven herself in combat, earned the respect of her peers, and demonstrated leadership capabilities that opened new opportunities for advancement. But she also understood that her greatest challenges might still lie ahead, as the military grappled with evolving policies and changing expectations about who could serve in elite military roles. The foundation she had built through years of dedicated service would soon be tested in ways she could never have anticipated, culminating in a moment that would define not just her own career, but perceptions about courage, sacrifice, and the true meaning of military service. Sarah's promotion to lieutenant came with new responsibilities and an assignment that would prove to be the most challenging of her career. She was selected to lead a specialized training unit responsible for developing integration protocols for the expanded role of women in special operations. The position placed her at the center of ongoing policy debates while requiring her to maintain operational readiness for potential deployment. The assignment brought Sarah into contact with Admiral Rebecca Morrison, a pioneering Navy leader who had spent her career breaking barriers in traditionally male-dominated fields. Admiral Morrison had been instrumental in developing policies that opened new opportunities for women throughout the military, but she also understood the importance of maintaining the rigorous standards that made special operations effective. During their first meeting, Admiral Morrison explained the broader context of Sarah's new role. "You're not just training personnel," she said. "You're helping to write the playbook for how the military will operate in the future. Every protocol you develop, every training standard you establish, will influence policy decisions that affect thousands of people." Sarah felt the weight of this responsibility, but she also saw it as an opportunity to ensure that changes were implemented thoughtfully and professionally. She began working with teams of experienced operators, training specialists, and policy experts to develop comprehensive programs that would maintain operational effectiveness while expanding opportunities for qualified personnel. The work required delicate balancing of competing priorities. Sarah needed to address legitimate concerns about physical standards and unit cohesion, while also challenging assumptions that weren't based on actual performance requirements. She spent months analyzing data from training programs, studying successful integration examples from international military forces, and consulting with combat veterans who had served in mixed-gender units. One of her most significant challenges came from within the special operations community itself. During a training conference attended by senior enlisted personnel from multiple units, Sarah faced sharp questioning about her integration protocols. Master Chief Petty Officer Reynolds, a veteran with over 20 years of special operations experience, expressed skepticism about proposed changes to training standards. "I've served with some outstanding women," Reynolds said during a heated discussion, "but I've also seen standards lowered in the name of inclusion. How do we ensure that changes don't compromise the effectiveness that makes special operations successful?" Sarah's response demonstrated the diplomatic skills she had developed throughout her career. She acknowledged the legitimate concerns while presenting data that showed how properly implemented integration could actually improve unit performance. She emphasized that her recommendations focused on validating standards based on actual job requirements rather than simply lowering barriers. "Our goal isn't to make training easier," she explained. "It's to ensure that our standards accurately reflect what's needed for mission success. If someone can meet those standards regardless of their background, they should have the opportunity to serve. If they can't meet them, they shouldn't be here regardless of their background." This approach gradually won over skeptics who saw that Sarah was committed to maintaining the high standards that defined special operations excellence. Her willingness to engage with difficult questions and her obvious expertise in operational matters helped build credibility with personnel who might otherwise have dismissed policy changes as politically motivated. The real test of Sarah's protocols came during a joint training exercise that brought together special operations units from multiple services. The exercise was designed to simulate complex counterterrorism operations, requiring close coordination between teams with different capabilities and backgrounds. Sarah's unit was tasked with leading the planning and execution phases, providing an opportunity to demonstrate the effectiveness of their integrated approach. The exercise began with traditional challenges, but quickly escalated to scenarios that tested every aspect of leadership, teamwork, and tactical decision-making. Sarah found herself coordinating with Marine Force reconnaissance teams, Army Special Forces units, and Air Force Special Tactics personnel, each bringing different perspectives and capabilities to the mission. During the most challenging phase of the exercise, Sarah's team was required to conduct a complex urban operation involving multiple objectives and tight time constraints. The scenario included simulated civilian casualties, equipment failures, and communications breakdowns that forced teams to adapt their approaches in real time. Sarah's leadership during this exercise caught the attention of Colonel James Patterson, a senior officer who was evaluating the effectiveness of new training protocols. Patterson had initial reservations about integrated units, based on his own experiences in previous conflicts, but he was impressed by the seamless way Sarah's team operated under extreme pressure. "She's not leading like someone trying to prove a point," Patterson noted in his evaluation report. "She's leading like someone who belongs there, making decisions based on tactical requirements rather than external expectations. That's exactly what you want to see in any leader, regardless of their background." The success of the training exercise led to Sarah being selected for an even more prestigious assignment. She was chosen to attend the Naval War College, where she would study strategic planning and military policy at the highest levels. The program would prepare her for potential command positions and policy-making roles that could influence the direction of military operations for decades to come. As Sarah prepared for this next phase of her career, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from a small Texas town to the upper ranks of America's most elite military units. The tattoo on her wrist had remained constant throughout all the changes, serving as a reminder of the family legacy and personal values that had guided her decisions. During her final week before departing for the War College, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at her office. Master Chief Reynolds, who had been one of her most vocal skeptics during the training conference, requested a private meeting. The conversation that followed would prove to be one of the most meaningful of her entire military career. "I owe you an apology," Reynolds said, his weathered face showing genuine respect. "When you first started working on these integration protocols, I thought you were just another staff officer pushing policies that sounded good on paper but wouldn't work in the real world. I was wrong about that, and I was wrong about you." Reynolds went on to explain that he had served alongside personnel trained under Sarah's new protocols during recent operations. The performance he had witnessed convinced him that the integration approach could work when implemented by someone who truly understood operational requirements. "What you've accomplished isn't just about proving that women can serve in special operations," he continued. "You've shown that leadership comes from character and competence, not from fitting a particular mold. That's a lesson that benefits everyone who serves." Sarah was deeply moved by Reynolds's words, particularly because they represented a broader shift in thinking within the special operations community. The respect she had earned wasn't based on her gender or her role as a symbol of change, but on her proven ability to excel in the demanding world of military leadership. As she prepared for the War College and the challenges that lay ahead, Sarah understood that her greatest test was yet to come. The skills and reputation she had built would soon be put to the ultimate examination in a setting where a single moment would define not just her own legacy, but the perceptions of everyone who questioned whether someone like her truly belonged among America's elite military leaders. The annual Special Operations Command Symposium was held at the prestigious Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. Military leaders from around the world gathered to discuss emerging threats, tactical innovations, and the future of special operations. For Sarah, now a lieutenant commander after her successful completion of the War College program, attending the symposium represented the culmination of years of professional development and the opportunity to contribute to strategic discussions that would shape military policy. The event drew over 200 senior military officers, defense contractors, and government officials. Among the attendees was Admiral William Harrison, the legendary Navy SEAL commander, whose combat leadership during multiple conflicts had made him a revered figure throughout the military. Harrison's reputation was built on decades of operational excellence, and his opinions carried significant weight in policy discussions about special operations capabilities. Sarah had been selected to present her research on integrated unit effectiveness, drawing from her years of developing training protocols and leading mixed-gender special operations teams. Her presentation was scheduled for the symposium's second day, and she had spent weeks preparing to address an audience that included some of the most experienced military leaders in the world. The symposium began with traditional formal protocols, including a reception where attendees could network and discuss current challenges facing the special operations community. Sarah found herself in conversations with officers from various international forces, sharing perspectives on training methods and operational approaches that had proven successful in different environments. During the reception, she noticed a group of senior officers engaged in what appeared to be a heated discussion about recent policy changes affecting special operations personnel. As she moved closer, she could hear fragments of conversation that made it clear they were debating the effectiveness of integration policies that she had helped develop. One officer, a Marine colonel with multiple combat deployments, was expressing skepticism about whether recent changes had maintained appropriate standards. "I'm not questioning anyone's individual capabilities," he said, "but we have to consider the broader implications of these policy shifts. Special operations isn't the place for social experiments." Another officer nodded in agreement, pointing out challenges he had observed during recent joint operations. The conversation continued with various perspectives being shared, but the general tone suggested significant reservations about the direction of current policies. Sarah listened to the discussion without interrupting, understanding that her presence might influence the honesty of their concerns. She had learned throughout her career that addressing skepticism required patience and the right opportunity to demonstrate capabilities rather than argue about them. The moment that would define the entire symposium occurred during an unexpected break in the formal program. Admiral Harrison had been delayed by weather, and his keynote address had been postponed, leaving symposium organizers scrambling to fill the schedule gap. The moderator announced that they would use the time for informal discussions and networking. As attendees mingled in the main conference hall, Sarah found herself standing near a display of military honors and historical artifacts. She was studying a collection of medals awarded to special operations personnel when she noticed someone approaching from behind. "Lieutenant Commander Martinez?" The voice belonged to Admiral Harrison, who had apparently arrived during the break and was making his way through the crowd of attendees. Sarah immediately came to attention, recognizing one of the most respected leaders in the special operations community. "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, maintaining perfect military bearing despite the informal setting. Admiral Harrison studied her for a moment, his experienced eyes taking in details that most people would miss. His gaze briefly focused on the small anchor tattoo visible on her wrist, the same tattoo that had drawn mockery years earlier during her initial training. "I've been reading your research on integration protocols," Harrison said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of lives. "Impressive work. Your analysis of unit cohesion factors and performance metrics shows a thorough understanding of operational requirements." Sarah felt a surge of pride at the recognition, but she maintained her professional composure. "Thank you, sir. I've been fortunate to work with outstanding personnel who made that research possible." What happened next would be remembered by everyone present for years to come. Admiral Harrison, without any prompting or announcement, raised his hand in a crisp military salute directed specifically at Sarah. The gesture was deliberate, formal, and unmistakably respectful. The effect on the crowded conference hall was immediate and profound. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as attendees turned to witness the unexpected scene. Admiral Harrison, a figure of legendary status within the military community, was publicly honoring a junior officer in a way that conveyed deep respect and recognition. The silence that followed lasted only seconds, but it felt much longer to everyone present. Sarah returned the salute with equal precision, her years of military training taking over despite the emotional impact of the moment. When both officers dropped their salutes, the symbolic gesture had accomplished something that hours of policy debates could never achieve. Admiral Harrison's words, spoken clearly enough for nearby attendees to hear, completed the moment that would become legendary within the special operations community. "Your father would be proud," he said, referring to the military legacy that Sarah's tattoo represented. "You've honored his service and demonstrated what it truly means to be a warrior." The gathering crowd of officers began to understand what they had witnessed. Admiral Harrison's salute wasn't just a recognition of Sarah's individual achievements. It was an acknowledgement that excellence in military service comes from character, dedication, and proven performance, rather than from conforming to traditional expectations. The formal proceedings resumed shortly afterward, but the atmosphere of the symposium had fundamentally changed. Conversations about integration policies shifted from theoretical debates to discussions about implementation best practices. Officers who had previously expressed skepticism found themselves reconsidering their positions based on the dramatic demonstration they had witnessed. Sarah's presentation later that day received an enthusiastic response from an audience that now viewed her work through a different lens. The research and protocols she had developed were no longer seen as experimental policies, but as practical solutions developed by a proven military leader whose capabilities had been validated by one of the most respected figures in special operations. The story of Admiral Harrison's salute spread quickly throughout the military community, becoming a powerful symbol of how perceptions about military service and leadership were evolving. For Sarah, the moment represented validation of everything she had worked to achieve, not just for herself, but for the countless others who would follow similar paths in military service. Years later, as Sarah continued to advance through senior leadership positions, she would often reflect on that moment at the symposium. The small tattoo that had once been mocked had become a symbol of heritage, dedication, and the kind of service that transcends traditional boundaries. Admiral Harrison's salute had silenced not just a room full of military leaders, but also the voices of doubt that had questioned whether someone like her truly belonged among America's elite warriors. The legacy of that moment would influence military policy for generations, proving that true leadership recognizes excellence wherever it emerges and honors those who serve with distinction, regardless of the path they took to get there.